how do you encourage or have everybody build to LEED standards?
Well, we have not put the LEED standards on any residential buildings or commercial. It was just municipal. But what we've done was we put in some green building codes. And there's about 100 homes that have been tested by NREL, National Renewable Energy Lab, and Greensburg Greentown as to their energy efficiency. The lowest has been 30%, the highest has been 70% above our existing code. So we're implementing that, and then we're going to incentivize it. If you reach these levels, your building permits and fees will be lower. This is still America. You own your property. You can build back however you want. So we're trying to do it with a stick and carrot method of education and encouraging, and that's mandating things will just not work, in my opinion, and that's strictly my opinion. You have to be able to show people that it's going to affect, as my granddad always said, the lessons you learn the best are the ones that get right there in your billfold. At the time of the tornado, we had barrel of oil was 150 bucks. The price of gas at the pump was $4 a gallon. It's pretty easy to sell being more energy efficient and building back smart, greener, and bigger. So that's what we're doing on building codes and those kind of things. Now, we've had some people that just thought, oh, we got to go out in the country, out in the county, because I don't want to build to nothing. And they're building homes. They're building homes that consume half the energy that the old thing that they lived in was. So they're greener than they want to allow themselves to think. And the other thing is we've partnered with the Kansas Building Contractors Association on a memorandum of understanding, and they're bringing contractors to Greensburg to go through certification processes to understand that green and sustainable isn't this big scary cloud that's coming in the sky.
I wanted to ask, are the new buildings constructed to withstand 200-mile-an-hour winds, etc.? How do you address that, for just in case there's another tornado?
Well, you know, that's pretty hard to address, because if you have a 200-plus mile-an-hour wind, you're going to have some destruction. But what we're doing is trying to minimize that destruction through ICF, insulated concrete forms construction, through the design of your roofs so that you don't get air underneath when that vacuum sucks the roof off, but doing things that minimize the destruction that would come. It's just like a massive earthquake. You can have all the earthquake things you want involved in it, but if it's a big one, you're going to have damage. And I don't want to say that we are not doing something, but we are. We're trying to minimize that destruction.
I don't have a question, but I have some comments. I've been in the green building for a long time, and I've been doing it myself, and sporadically over the years it's slowly starting to catch on. And I just want to say that doing it on the scale that you're doing it, the entire community, it's been such a great inspiration for everybody. And I think it's going to be a great model for the rest of the nation to really watch. I'm stuck on Planet Green on watching the show, and I can't get off of that.
Thank you. We as a community don't take this responsibility lightly. We understand wherever we go, and we have community members going everywhere across the United States visiting with people. We understand that we need to make sure we do it right and we walk the walk so that we can continue to offer hope and so we can continue to offer good news. There's a real longing in our society, especially in the United States right now, some good news. And people, I think, are seeing that through the show is some good news, some people actually doing it. And I don't want to sound conceited or anything, but each one of us can do that, of uplift each other and share the good news and celebrate our successes of what we're doing to make this that place that we want it to be at the end of the 21st century. Yeah, before the tornado we were about 1,400 people. We've been as high as 2,000, 2,100, but through brain drain and sending our kids off, not having jobs for them, our population got older and smaller. We're back to about 800 to 850 people. And I'm telling you, 850 people that have invested their life savings in this community, that have invested their heart and soul in it. And that's what's making this work. It's not about any one or two people. It's about 850 true leaders that are really committed to being a community together.
Hi. I also grew up in Kansas in the 60s. And actually, my dad was probably that green guy you were laughing at, although he doesn't do any drugs. But he started an environmental studies program at the college where he taught, and we continue to do that work. And I thank you very much for bringing this green consciousness to Kansas. But also, as I was hearing you speak, and you mentioned something in the beginning about feeling like you knew how people who were homeless felt, sort of. And I kept thinking about how it seems like Greensburg has gotten, there's been a whole different set, and of course it's a completely different scale and everything, of response than like after the disaster of Katrina in the Gulf Coast. And I wondered if you could speak to that and how we can bring some of these things to other communities that don't maybe have or haven't gotten the benefits and the blessings that you have.
That question's been asked numerous times, and some of them by people from New Orleans and Biloxi and all that. I mean, yes, we had a very great experience, but challenging experience with FEMA. But I tell them the most important thing we gotta say is we can't compare apples to apples in this situation. Our geographical destruction was very small. Concentration of resources from FEMA, USDA, and that made a big difference because they weren't spread clear across the whole Gulf Coast and Galveston and the coast down there a year later. So it's very difficult to compare because geographically and damage-wise it's totally different in its own way. Now, I was at the floods in Iowa a year and a half ago, and I just went, I'm glad I lost my whole house instead of having a flood. Because I couldn't imagine your basement filled up and half your first story filled up with water, and then the water recedes, and what are you going to do? The structure's still okay, so they say, the insurance company. So anyway, it's all in perspective. A disaster is a disaster no matter where you're at in life. And it's really hard to compare that one's more important than the other. If your house burns down and your neighbor's doesn't, it's a disaster for them, or you, but not necessarily for them. So we, each one of us, have disaster in our corporate, in our private lives, and in our community lives. Yes, we can have all kinds of manuals on the wall that tell us how to deal with this on emergency preparedness. But when you get to that situation, it's pretty tough to focus on where the manuals are because they're gone in the wind. So you deal with the humanness factor of where you're at. Yes. I'll catch you next, sir.
First, I want to thank you for coming here and giving this talk. It's been very interesting. But I have one question, and that is, how did you finance all this? You know, we have John Deere and the other big national companies that have an interest in the farming and such as that. They can finance putting up the new building. But in your case, particularly the public buildings, that how did you get the money? Money is so hard to get sometimes.
Right. First of all, you have your insurance money. Second of all, on municipal buildings, FEMA pays 75% of what it was prior to the storm. Not what it's going to cost to rebuild, but what it was prior to the storm. So if you take a building that's 70 years old, that's valued at $100,000 and it's going to cost you $300,000 or $400,000 to rebuild, FEMA's only going to give you $75,000. So there's that, and USDA Rural Development was very active, that helped out, and we've had private corporations step up and donated sizable amounts. The incubator building, Sun Chips Corporation, division of Frito-Lay, In Modesto, California, their SunChips plant is totally solar powered. And they wanted to be associated with Greensburg, Kansas to the tune of $1 million. Leonardo DiCaprio gave $400,000. Clorox Corporation, $500,000. They understand, I jokingly say this, but our ancestors in 1886, I thank them for naming the town Greensburg and how visionary they were. I had a gentleman here